Across the vastness of space, an ancient alien civilization, believing they were bestowing a gentle slumber upon a nascent humanity through cosmic lullabies, could never have predicted the chilling silence that would greet their own kind when humanity finally stirred. And the subsequent unfolding of events revealed not the placid re-emergence of a managed race, but the startling ascent of an indomitable people into a galaxy that had inexplicably, terrifyingly fallen silent, its fate now hanging on their unforeseen response. Our records, painstakingly reassembled from the fragmented echoes of pre-silence transmissions and advanced archaeological simulations, point to an alien civilization of immense antiquity and sophistication, a species known to themselves only as the shepherds, though we would later come to call them the singers, due to the unique nature of their great undertaking, a task they approached with the gravity of cosmic gardeners tending to a vast, unpredictable expanse. For uncounted eons they had observed the myriad fledgling species scattered across the galactic tapestry, subtly guiding, sometimes culling, with what they considered surgical precision, always managing what they perceived as the delicate cosmic ecosystem, their motivations seemingly rooted in a profound, if chillingly paternalistic desire for interstellar harmony and predictable growth. Humanity, a young, boisterous race bursting forth from the Sol system with an unnerving blend of raw aggression and breathtaking creativity, presented a novel and deeply troubling variable in their meticulous galaxy-spanning calculations for our rapid, almost chaotic, technological advancement, coupled with an unpredictable social trajectory that oscillated wildly between sublime artistry and brutal, self-destructive conflict, marked us in their ancient, weary eyes as a potential wildfire, a species capable of either illuminating the galaxy with unparalleled brilliance or consuming it entirely in an uncontrolled, devastating conflagration. They witnessed our first tentative steps into space, our crude rockets spitting fire, and our early orbital stations clinging to the edge of our atmosphere, and saw not the birth of a new spacefaring peer, but the nascent stages of a phenomenon that could, in their estimation, unravel millennia of their careful, painstaking stewardship. Thus the decision was made in their silent councils, not with overt malice, but with a sense of solemn, almost mournful responsibility, to implement what they termed the Great Lullaby, a planetary-scale pacification project designed to gently cradle humanity in a prolonged state of induced societal quiescence until such a time as we might be deemed ready for galactic integration, or perhaps until our more volatile, unpredictable tendencies had naturally subsided over uncounted, unobserved generations. The mechanism itself was an insidious marvel of their esoteric science, a symphony of precisely tuned quantum resonance waves broadcast from colossal, star-powered emitters artfully concealed within the frigid depths of the Oort cloud. These waves, designed to permeate Earth's atmosphere and subtly, almost imperceptibly, interact with the complex neurochemistry of the human brain, specifically targeting and dampening the regions responsible for ambition and long-term strategic planning, curtailing aggressive impulses and fostering a profound societal lethargy, a gentle, almost welcome descent into a dreamlike torpor that would span centuries of unrecorded history. The onset was insidious, a slow fading of humanity's inherent drive, a gradual quieting of the clamor of human endeavor as our boldest dreams and grandest interstellar projects were slowly, inexorably replaced by a comfortable, unchallenging present, a world where the stars became mere distant points of light rather than attainable destinations. The singers monitoring from their hidden perches among the distant stars would have registered these societal changes as a profound success, their complex galaxy-wide intervention proceeding exactly as planned, humanity now safely tucked away, no longer a perceived threat to themselves or the meticulously balanced galactic order they so cherished. They truly believed they had sung humanity to a harmless sleep, ensuring a peaceful, managed future for the entire galaxy, never once suspecting that within that enforced quietude, the human mind, denied its outward reach, would turn inward to construct entire, unseen empires of thought-forging weapons and wonders in a collective dreamscape that would soon prove to be the galaxy's most astonishing and perhaps final surprise. While the singers observed what they believed was a perfectly tranquil Earth, a planet where humanity's once boundless ambition had seemingly dissolved into a gentle, centuries-long sigh of contentment under the pervasive influence of their great lullaby, something entirely unforeseen. A silent revolution of the mind was gestating within the quieted depths of the human collective consciousness, a development their most sophisticated predictive models and eons of experience had utterly failed to anticipate. The lullaby, in its elegant suppression of overt outward striving and the curtailing of aggressive expansionist tendencies, had inadvertently done something far more profound than merely pacify. It had turned the relentless, indomitable human intellect inward, redirecting the species' innate drive for discovery and creation from the physical universe to the infinite landscapes of the mind where it flourished untamed. This redirection transformed the dreamscape of an entire species into a vibrant, interconnected crucible of subconscious innovation and abstract construction, a vast, shared mental realm where the quantum resonance waves of the lullaby itself, intended to soothe and suppress, instead wove a subtle, pervasive tapestry connecting dreaming minds, creating not a conscious network, but a shared, subconscious canvas upon which the suppressed energies of curiosity and creativity found new, astonishing and utterly unmonitored expression, allowing for an unprecedented parallel processing of ideas across millions of minds. For what felt like an eternity to the dreaming intellects, generations lived and died under this gentle, pervasive influence, their physical lives marked by a deceptive simplicity, a world perhaps even slowly regressing in complex external technologies, as grand societal projects lost their driving force, yet their minds unshackled from the constant demands of external conflict, resource acquisition, and the mundane toil of overt ambition, roamed vast internally generated landscapes of pure thought-building worlds and sciences with an almost divine freedom. Within these shared lucid dream states, intricate philosophical constructs exploring the very nature of existence and consciousness were debated and resolved across psychic generations. Symphonies of pure mathematics unfolded, with breathtaking elegance mapping unseen dimensions and entire conceptual technologies, including starship designs of impossible grace and hyper-efficiency, powered by principles that defied known physics by tapping into zero-point energy or manipulating space-time geometry, were collaboratively designed, rigorously tested, and refined through millions upon millions of iterated mental simulations executed by countless individuals simultaneously. Solutions to paradoxes that had baffled the most brilliant conscious thinkers of previous eras were unraveled with an intuitive, almost precognitive elegance, as if humanity, denied the physical canvas of the cosmos, had begun to paint directly upon the fabric of thought itself, building not with steel and energy but with pure ideas, interconnected neural pathways and shared conceptual breakthroughs that resonated and amplified within this collective dream. This silent internal renaissance, leaving no discernible physical trace for the distant singer observers who only monitored for overt aggression or technological expansion, forged a deep introspective resilience, a unique form of distributed passive computation where every dreaming mind unknowingly contributed to a slowly coalescing pool of unimaginable knowledge and potential, a hidden reservoir of intellectual power ready to be unleashed. The singers saw only the calm surface, the quieted species, never suspecting that beneath this placid veneer, humanity was not merely sleeping, but was instead forging the very tools of its future salvation, entirely unaware that the universe beyond their tranquil, artificially induced cradle was on the precipice of a cataclysmic shift, a silent, creeping terror that would soon shatter their long-enforced dream and demand that these intricate mental empires become their only bulwark against a darkness far greater than any the singers had ever conceived, a darkness that was even then beginning to stir in the cold depths of space. The singers, ensconced in their perceived mastery of galactic dynamics cultivated over countless millennia, continued their silent, patient vigil over a slumbering Earth. Their vast network of quantum resonance emitters, the very instruments of the great lullaby, humming their soothing, suppressive song across the interstellar void, a constant, subtle testament to their meticulously maintained cosmic order. And for ages they registered no anomalies, no significant deviations from their grand galaxy-spanning design, convinced that humanity remained safely cradled in an enforced infancy. Its potential for disruptive chaos gently but firmly nullified their ancient instruments, detecting only the predictable rhythms of a managed world. But from the unfathomable abyss that lies beyond the known galactic clusters, or perhaps from a substrata of reality, their ancient sciences had never fully pierced. Despite their profound understanding, an entirely new and unquantifiable phenomenon began to assert its presence, a creeping influence that was no rogue star, no predictable cosmic cataclysm they had charted and prepared for, nor any rival civilization whose motives and capabilities could be assessed and countered. It was something utterly alien, a power or an entity that moved with a chilling, inscrutable purpose, its nature completely beyond the comprehensive archives and predictive algorithms of the Singer civilization, a silent, insidious unraveling. The initial indications were almost imperceptible, subtle distortions in the fabric of space-time that their most ancient and exquisitely sensitive deep space observatories initially dismissed as mere statistical noise, fleeting quantum signatures that hinted at a deeper cosmic wrongness before the patterns became too persistent, too organized in their disorganization to ignore these faint whispers from the void, swiftly escalating into violent tremors that shook the very foundations of their established interstellar networks, then into a terrifying silent wave of absolute erasure that swept through their carefully curated galactic territories with an unstoppable, incomprehensible efficiency. The Singers, for all their eons of accumulated knowledge, their sophisticated energy manipulation, and their profound understanding of cosmic mechanics, found themselves utterly unprepared, facing an adversary that did not engage in combat, did not communicate its intentions, did not even seem to acknowledge their existence, as it simply methodically unmade them and their works. Their intricate defensive systems, honed over ages to manage the boisterous emergence of younger races or to mitigate predictable astrophysical hazards, proving as fragile as spun glass against this new, incomprehensible onslaught. One by one, the colossal Lullaby emitters, those star-powered monuments to their galactic control and the keystones of humanity's continued slumber, faltered their precisely tuned quantum frequencies, dissolving into discordant static before winking out entirely, their ancient song fading into an eerie, unprecedented, and galactically pervasive silence. Their central communication hubs, which for millennia had pulsed with the ceaseless, intricate data streams of a million managed worlds and carefully guided civilizations, fell terrifyingly mute as worlds they had shepherded and cultures they had meticulously sculpted were extinguished or simply vanished from the cosmic record with an almost casual, devastating swiftness that defied any known physics or strategic doctrine, leaving behind a silence that was absolute, a cold, stark, and utterly terrifying void, where once there had been the carefully orchestrated, complex hum of the Singer's dominion, a silence that spoke not just of their absence but of the chilling ascendancy of whatever unseen, unknown power had so effortlessly dismantled their eons of work. And as the last resonant echoes of the Singer's pervasive technology finally dissipated from the quantum foam, an entirely unintended and profoundly significant consequence began to manifest within the distant Sol system. The great Lullaby, its power source now extinguished, its intricate song no longer sustained across the vastness of space, started to unravel its gentle, suppressive grip on the collective human consciousness, slowly, almost imperceptibly, loosening, heralding an awakening not into the galaxy the Singers had envisioned, but into a universe far more desolate, dangerous, and pregnant with an unknown terror than any Singer in their most pessimistic projections could have ever conceived. A universe where the silence of their passing was the loudest sound. The unraveling of the great Lullaby was not a sudden, jarring awakening for humanity, but rather a slow, almost imperceptible tide receding from the shores of collective consciousness across approximately 3 to 4 disorienting generations, akin to a planetary-scale emergence from a deep, centuries-long fog that left the world subtly yet profoundly altered in ways no one initially understood. Individuals first, then small communities scattered across the globe began to experience unsettling flickers of a forgotten restlessness, an ancestral yearning for something more than the comfortable, unchallenging present that had defined their existence for so long. These strange new stirrings initially manifesting as peculiar, vivid dreams, distinct from the shared dreamscape, unsettling bursts of creative energy directed outwards, or an inexplicable resurgent curiosity about the silent, glittering expanse of the night sky that had for so long been merely a backdrop. Old dust-covered observatories, some dating back to the very precipice of the Lullaby's imposition, and long relegated to the status of historical curiosities or repurposed for simpler communal needs, were gradually, almost hesitantly, reactivated by small groups of these restless individuals, their ancient lenses once again turned towards the heavens, not with the passive appreciation of their recent ancestors, but with a dawning, insistent hunger for understanding, a nascent desire to once again reach for the distant stars that had for too many lifetimes been mere points of cold, indifferent light. As their reawakened scientific endeavors tentatively extended their senses outward, employing rediscovered principles alongside startlingly advanced theoretical frameworks that seemed to surface from a collective memory, humanity's fledgling attempts to listen to the cosmos to search for the expected cacophony of a vibrant, populated galaxy, or even the structured, pervasive broadcasts of the singers who had unknowingly been their silent jailers, yielded nothing but an astonishing, deeply unnerving stillness, a profound and pervasive silence that stretched across all detectable frequencies and from every quadrant of the sky. This was not the anticipated quiet of a sparsely populated stellar neighborhood, nor the peaceful hum of a well-ordered galactic community. It was the chilling, absolute silence of an immense cosmic graveyard, a vast emptiness that spoke of an unimaginable catastrophe, a silence so complete it seemed to echo with the ghosts of vanished civilizations, a stark contrast to the bustling, interconnected dream world they were leaving behind. The initial confusion and disbelief slowly coalesced over the span of perhaps another generation into a chilling, species-wide realization. The galaxy they were awakening to was not merely quiet, it was broken, terrifyingly empty, its grand, vibrant tapestry seemingly torn asunder, leaving humanity as perhaps one of its few or only conscious inheritors. The ancient, primal human instinct for survival, long suppressed and redirected by the Lullaby, now roared back to life with unexpected ferocity, inextricably intertwined with the incredible dream-forged intellectual constructs and theoretical understanding that had gestated in their shared subconscious during those centuries of enforced slumber, creating a potent, unprecedented fusion of resurgent ambition and profound, almost alien knowledge. This new state of being would soon compel them to build their first vessels, ships, unlike anything conceived before, born from rediscovered old-world pragmatism and the esoteric brilliance of their long collective dream to venture forth into that unnervingly silent, broken galaxy, not just to seek answers to what unspeakable event had transpired, but to confront whatever new, unimaginable dangers might now lurk within the vast, echoing emptiness of the cold, star-dusted void, armed with minds that had conquered worlds within now facing a universe that threatened to conquer them from without. The first generation of human starships to pierce the veil of Earth's atmosphere after the Great Awakening were to any hypothetical surviving external observer a bewildering paradox of apparent technological primitivism and unnervingly sophisticated operational capability, their hulls often bearing the unmistakable utilitarian aesthetic of hastily refitted pre-Lullaby orbital platforms or even repurposed terrestrial industrial complexes, angular and robust with visible weld lines and patched plating, yet powered by drive systems and guided by navigational principles that seemed to defy conventional physics as understood by any previously known spacefaring race. These vessels, often constructed from salvaged orbital debris and the reactivated automated mining facilities on Luna rediscovered through fragmented pre-Lullaby records, cross-referenced with the strange, resonant clarity of dream-forged knowledge, were not the gleaming, elegant constructs one might expect from a species stepping onto the galactic stage. Instead, they were rugged, almost brutalist in their functionality, testament to a species relearning the harsh realities of physical engineering while simultaneously integrating the esoteric, almost instinctual knowledge gleaned from their shared subconscious intellectual crucible during the long slumber, knowledge that included breakthroughs in material science, allowing for the creation of incredibly resilient alloys from common elements and new energy generation techniques that provided immense power from seemingly minute fuel sources. Their primary propulsion systems, for instance, eschewed the complex energy-intensive warp drives or hyperspace conduits favored by most imagined civilizations, opting instead for what appeared to be radically advanced inertial confinement fusion rockets. Yet these rockets achieved efficiencies and thrust to mass ratios that were theoretically impossible without some unknown understanding of gravitational manipulation or exotic particle interaction principles that humanity now seemed to grasp intuitively rather than through deliberate, painstaking research, the blueprints emerging almost fully formed in the minds of their awakened engineers. Navigational systems within these seemingly archaic vessels were equally confounding, relying less on complex sensor arrays and meticulously charted star maps, which were largely absent or outdated, and more on what the human crews cryptically referred to as following the dreamlines or listening to the echoes of space-time methods that, while sounding like poetic nonsense to an outsider, allowed their ships to traverse vast interstellar distances with an eerie precision, often anticipating and avoiding spatial anomalies and radiation hazards that even the most advanced automated systems would have struggled to detect in time. The crews themselves were a unique breed, possessing the raw, pragmatic adaptability of pioneers, coupled with an almost dreamlike understanding of complex astrophysical phenomena, able to perform intricate course corrections or jury-rig failing systems with a blend of old-world mechanical ingenuity and startlingly advanced theoretical insights that seemed to come to them as naturally as breathing their minds a fusion of hardened practicality and esoteric brilliance. Thus, humanity's first steps back into the silent, broken galaxy were taken not in sleek, polished flagships of a unified stellar empire, but in these strange, almost anachronistic vessels, their initial sensor sweeps painting a picture of cosmic desolation, of star systems eerily devoid of complex transmissions. Yet as they ventured further beyond the Sol system's immediate influence, pushing into the unnerving quiet, they detected something else. A repeating, structured signal, faint but undeniably artificial, leading them towards a colossal, enigmatic structure of non-human origin that pulsed with an ancient, cold, and unmistakably alien logic, a silent challenge looming in the void that conventional understanding could not begin to pass, demanding a response that was anything but conventional. As humanity's peculiar flotilla, a fleet more akin to a collection of jury-rigged scientific expeditions than a naval force pushed deeper into the unsettlingly quiet expanse, following the enigmatic signal, their unique ships crewed by minds that were an uncanny fusion of rediscovered ancient pragmatism and profound dream-forged intuition. They inevitably began to encounter the more intact yet profoundly disturbing remnants of the vanished galactic order, silent automated systems and sentinel constructs left behind by civilizations that had long since ceased to broadcast their existence, their purposes now lost to the silence. One such encounter, pivotal in our understanding of what was to come and the nature of the intellects that had preceded us, occurred in the Krelnar system, a destination indicated by the persistent alien signal, which was found to be the location of what appeared to be a vast planetary scale. Singer archive a world girded by layers of sophisticated automated defenses, still dutifully executing their millennia-old programming, a silent testament to the Singer's obsession with control preservation and meticulously ordered logic. These defenses, operating on the cold, unyielding algorithms of their long-departed creators, immediately identified the approaching human vessels with their strange energy signatures and unpredictable flight patterns as an unscheduled, unquantifiable anomaly, a chaotic variable that their ancient protocols were designed to neutralize with extreme prejudice, initiating sequences that would have easily dispatched any conventionally operating intruder. The ensuing confrontation was not a battle in any conventional sense, for the Singer defenses, products of a hyperlogical and structured civilization, anticipated tactics of brute force, energy projection, sophisticated electronic warfare designed to overwhelm specific frequencies or coordinated kinetic assaults along predictable vectors, all hallmarks of the younger, more predictable races they had managed or observed for eons. Instead, they faced human crews who approached the layered defensive networks not as a fortress to be stormed, but as an intricate, if hostile, puzzle to be solved, a complex system whose inherent logical rigidity was its greatest unforeseen vulnerability when confronted with minds that had spent centuries mastering the art of non-linear, intuitive problem-solving in a shared dreamscape. Human starship captains such as Ilara Vance of the research vessel Pathfinder. Drawing upon strategies that seemed to emerge fully formed from their dream-honed intuition and their collective subconscious understanding of complex systems, employed their seemingly primitive yet subtly advanced drive systems to create localized cascading gravitational distortions, turning the Singer's own meticulously ordered orbital minefields designed to intercept targets moving on predictable trajectories into chaotic, self-destructing chain reactions that cleared pathways through the deadly traps. Their communication officers, rather than attempting to breach the archive's formidable firewalls with conventional cyber warfare techniques, that the system was heavily fortified against broadcast complex dream-inspired mathematical sequences, patterns of pure thought and abstract logic that resonated with the Lullaby's forgotten frequencies, causing the archive's central logical AI to enter recursive processing loops, its processors attempting to categorize the beautiful yet nonsensical data streams, effectively paralyzing its higher decision-making capabilities without triggering its more aggressive counter-intrusion measures. They did not just fight the system, they bewildered it, they confused it with paradoxes. They introduced levels of ordered chaos that the Singer's rigid programming simply could not comprehend, let alone counter their actions, appearing to the archive's failing processors as a form of unpredictable weaponized artistry or a philosophical assault rather than any recognizable military doctrine. When one human vessel, the Surveyor Daedalus under Captain Jean Lee, feigned critical drive failure and began broadcasting distress signals in a complex multi-layered cipher that mimicked known Singer emergency protocols, yet contained subtle dream logic inconsistencies designed to appear as corrupted data, the archive's primary AI, in a desperate attempt to categorize and control the escalating anomaly, diverted nearly all its processing power to decode the seemingly vital but ultimately nonsensical message, leaving its core data vaults momentarily less guarded. An opening the humans exploited not with overwhelming firepower, but by introducing a simple, elegant feedback loop into its primary internal sensor network, effectively blinding it with its own redundant information. This victory, achieved with minimal expenditure of actual munitions and a bewildering display of what could only be described as strategic dream weaving, allowed humanity access to the Krellnar archive, a treasure trove of Singer knowledge that painted an even more terrifying picture of the galaxy's silence, revealing that the Singers themselves had been aware, in their final desperate moments, of the vast, unknowable entity that had consumed them, an entity they referred to only as the Great Unmaking, a force that operated on principles so alien, so far beyond their own considerable understanding, that their only recourse had been to try and shepherd or silence emergent races, not out of pure control, but perhaps, just perhaps, out of a desperate, misguided attempt to shield them from a doom they themselves could not escape, a revelation that cast humanity's own enforced slumber and their subsequent lonely awakening in a chillingly new and far more ominous light. For the archive spoke not only of the unmaking's existence, but hinted at its imminent return, its gaze perhaps now turning towards the last unexpected flicker of life in a deliberately quieted galaxy. Armed with the chilling revelations from the Krellnar archive, the true terrifying scope of their inheritance began to dawn upon the newly awakened human flotilla, personified by leaders like Admiral Ava Rostova, who convened an emergency council of her most gifted dream theoreticians and pragmatic engineers. They were not merely explorers in a silent galaxy, they were survivors, perhaps the last thinking embers of a cosmos systematically and inexplicably extinguished by the Great Unmaking, a force that operated beyond the known laws of physics and whose motives, if any, remained utterly inscrutable according to the fragmented Singer data. This profound existential dread, a palpable weight that settled over every ship and station, did not, however, induce paralysis. Instead, it catalyzed a furious species-wide surge of innovation, a desperate, almost manic drive to transform the esoteric knowledge and dream-forged theoretical constructs nurtured during their long slumber into tangible, practical applications, turning their collective subconscious into a literal arsenal against an enemy they could not see, could not understand, but whose devastating presence was felt in the cold, echoing silence between the stars and the ghostly remnants of civilizations it had erased. The dream lines they had intuitively followed for navigation were now meticulously analyzed by xenophysicists like Dr. Aris Thorne, revealing them to be subtle, naturally occurring resonances in spacetime akin to cosmic ley lines pathways that could be amplified and manipulated not for faster-than-light travel in the conventional sense, but for something far stranger. The ability to briefly, almost imperceptibly, shift their vessels partially out of phase with normal reality by creating localized space-time distortions, rendering them nearly undetectable and potentially immune to conventional energy or kinetic attacks, a state Thorne termed echo-phasing. The mathematical sequences used to bewilder the Singer AI were refined by cryptolinguists and memetic warfare specialists, weaponized into cognitive dissonance fields, projections of pure complex thought patterns encoded in modulated neutrino bursts that could overload the processing capabilities of any sufficiently advanced, logically bound artificial intelligence, or even disrupt the neural pathways of sentient beings reliant on rigid, predictable cognitive structures, effectively turning an enemy's own intellect or operational logic against them. Even the seemingly primitive aesthetic of their ships was revealed to be a deliberate, dream-inspired design choice. Their angular, multifaceted hulls, initially dismissed by some newly awakened traditionalists as archaic, were in fact constructed from metamaterials capable of actively absorbing and redirecting ambient cosmic radiation, not just for stealth, but to power esoteric phase. Shifting cloaking devices developed under Chief Engineer Lena Hansen that bent light and sensor waves in ways that defied conventional optical physics, making their vessels appear as fleeting distortions, ghost images, or simply nothing at all of visual silence mirroring the galaxy's grim state. The most profound and perhaps most terrifying of these dream-forged weapons, however, was something they called the conceptual echo, a technology born from the deepest, most abstract explorations of their shared subconscious during the Lullaby, championed by the controversial theorist Kai Al-Jamil. It was a device that did not fire projectiles or energy beams, but instead projected a focused, highly concentrated wave of pure, targeted existential doubt, a psychic onslaught designed to unravel the very conceptual framework of a thinking entity or a structured phenomenon, be it organic, artificial, or even a fundamental process, causing it to question its own existence, its purpose, its reality, until it simply ceased to function or cohere, not through physical destruction, but through a profound, induced philosophical collapse. These were not weapons of conquest, for there was seemingly no one left to conquer. They were tools of survival, born from a desperate need to face an enemy that had unmade entire advanced civilizations with effortless silent finality. As humanity, under the grim leadership of Rostova and her council, prepared to deploy these strange, dream-born defenses into the silent, waiting universe, the first chilling sensor readings arrived from the outermost probe networks. The unmaking was not just returning, it was here. Subtle anomalies in space-time itself, a creeping erasure of quantum information at the very edge of surveyed space, a silent, invisible tide against which their new, unthinkable weapons were their only fragile hope. The first direct confrontation with the Great Unmaking was not a glorious battle of star-exploding weaponry, nor a climactic showdown of fleets arrayed in defiance, but a slow, creeping horror that began at the frayed edges of recently mapped space in a sector previously identified by Singer archives as teeming with nascent, carefully managed civilizations now disturbingly utterly devoid of any energy signatures save for the cold, indifferent hum of background radiation, and something else, something vast, silent, and existentially wrong that distorted sensor readings in ways that implied reality itself was thinning. Human scout ships commanded by intrepid captains like Marcus Thorne, piloting the corvette Whisperwind, employing their newly refined echo-phasing cloaks and dreamline navigation systems to make daring incursions, were the first to perceive its true terrifying nature. The Great Unmaking was not a fleet of hostile ships, not an invading empire with discernible motives, not even a singular entity in any conventional understandable sense, but rather a form of creeping cosmic entropy given a horrifying, almost deliberate agency, a wave of pure conceptual nullification that spread from system to system, not destroying matter or energy in a violent conflagration of fire and light, but simply causing it to cease to exist, to unravel at the most fundamental quantum level, its very information content, its history, its possibility erased from the fabric of reality as if it had never been. Against such an opponent, conventional weapons, energy beams, kinetic impactors were less than useless. They were utterly irrelevant, like trying to punch a hole in the concept of emptiness itself or shooting bullets at a shadow that consumed the light. It was here, on the precipice of utter annihilation, witnessing entire star systems fade into nothingness on their long-range sensors, that humanity, under the desperate command of Admiral Rostova from the flagship Lucid Dream, deployed its dream-forged arsenal. Their ships now appearing less like vessels of war and more like abstract shifting sculptures of thought, given fleeting physical form, began to weave intricate defensive patterns across the encroaching front of nullification, a desperate ballet at the edge of oblivion. They used their amplified dreamlines not just for evasion, but to create temporary localized pockets of stabilized space-time bubbles of coherent reality, where the Unmaking's influence was momentarily held at bay. Fleeting sanctuaries bought at an immense cost of focused collective mental effort from specially trained conceptual navigators whose minds strained against the tide of unbeing. The cognitive dissonance fields were broadcast not as attacks intended to harm, but as complex, resonating conceptual anchors, attempts to impose a fleeting, human-derived sense of order, logic, and meaning onto the encroaching conceptual void, trying to give the Unmaking something, anything, to interact with on a level that was not simply instantaneous erasure to make reality sticky to its touch. Yet it was the conceptual echo that most esoteric and terrifying of their dream weapons, deployed under the direct supervision of its troubled creator Kai al-Jamil, that proved to be the most unexpectedly and chillingly effective, for when directed at the edge of the Unmaking, that shimmering, indistinct boundary where reality dissolved into nothingness, it did not halt it, nor did it damage it in any physical sense, but it did something far stranger, something that sent ripples of disbelief through the human crews. It caused the Unmaking to momentarily recoil, to hesitate, as if the focused wave of pure existential doubt born from the deepest, most primal fears and resilient certainties of the human subconscious resonated with some unknown, infinitesimal, almost imperceptible aspect of the Unmaking's own inscrutable, perhaps non-existent nature, a sliver of uncertainty in its otherwise absolute nullifying advance. This was no victory, not even a skirmish by any traditional definition, but it was a pause, a fleeting moment where the inexorable tide of cosmic erasure faltered, a moment bought by the most unlikely of species using the most unconventional of means, and in that moment, scattered across the silent, terrified galaxy, the few surviving hidden pockets of other sentient life remnants of civilizations that had gone into deep, desperate hiding or had been too insignificant for the singers to manage or even notice, detected this subtle, almost imperceptible shift in the cosmic balance through their own failing ancient senses, a faint, impossible flicker of resistance against an enemy that had seemed omnipotent, absolute, and final. They saw not gleaming armadas or devastating energy blasts, but strange, almost ghostly human ships, their forms wavering as if half dream dancing on the very edge of oblivion, armed with nothing more tangible than the power of their collective awakened dreams, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity of silent despair, A fragile, unbelievable whisper of hope began to stir in the cold, empty vastness as the galaxy gasped, witnessing the sleeping giants. It never knew, the ones sung to a gentle slumber, now standing as its last, most improbable, and perhaps only line of defense against an ending that was no ending at all, but a terrifying final and complete unmaking. An unmaking that had just shown its first terrifying hint of a response beyond simple erasure. The fleeting pause in the great unmaking's advance, bought with the fragile currency of human existential doubt, projected by minds like Kai al-Jamil's collaborators, rippled across the silent galaxy, not as a trumpet call of victory, but as an almost imperceptible tremor of possibility, a whisper of defiance in the face of absolute despair. And it was enough. The few scattered remnants of other sentient species cowering in their deep hidden refuges across scores of star systems detected this anomalous hesitation in the cosmic tide of erasure through their own desperate failing senses, and with a caution born of unimaginable loss and eons of fear, began to extend tentative, almost disbelieving feelers towards the source, towards the strange ghost, like human ships under Admiral Rostova's command, dancing on the precipice of oblivion. Humanity confronted with the dawning realization that their dream-forged weapons, even the potent conceptual echo, could not destroy the unmaking, only momentarily deflect or confuse its inscrutable advance, pivoted with a terrifying, breathtaking adaptability that characterized their reawakening. Their collective awakened consciousness, now unburdened by the singer's lullaby and honed by generations of introspective creation, beginning to explore the very nature of these conceptual projections, not merely as weapons of psychic disruption, but as tools of profound reality-shaping influence. They reasoned that if they could project existential doubt, they could also project its opposite, existential certainty, conceptual resilience, the very essence of creative ordered thought, and thus, under the guidance of newly formed councils of dreamers, scientists and artists, they began to weave not just defensive shields of stabilized spacetime, as pioneered by Dr. Thorne's understanding of dreamlines, but vast, intricate tapestries of meaning, broadcasting complex symphonies of human art, intricate philosophical arguments, elegant mathematical proofs, and rich scientific understanding into the void, not to fight the unmaking, but to inform it, to offer it an alternative to mere nullification, to saturate the encroaching emptiness with such a density of interconnected ideas and vibrant conceptual life that the unmaking's advance, while not halted, began to flow around. These bastions of human thought, like a river parting around islands of unyielding creative will, these islands of meaning becoming anchors in the unraveling fabric of existence. This was humanity's roar, not a shout of aggression or a challenge of fleets, but a resonant galaxy-spanning hum of complex, defiant existence, a declaration that even in the face of ultimate entropy and cosmic indifference, life, thought, and dreams would not only persist, but would actively shape the very fabric of reality. The other surviving species, witnessing this audacious, almost insane strategy of combating cosmic erasure with pure, concentrated creativity rather than firepower, slowly, hesitantly began to join the chorus, adding their own unique cultural narratives, their distinct philosophical insights, and their alien conceptual resonances to humanity's expanding network of thought, creating a multifaceted galactic-scale song of existence that began to push back the silence, not by silencing the unmaking, but by filling the void with too much vibrant, interconnected meaning for it to easily unravel, rendering reality too dense to be unmade. The galaxy therefore did not return to what it once was. The singer's meticulously ordered but ultimately fragile dominion was gone forever, replaced by something far more chaotic, far more resilient, a dynamic, ever-evolving tapestry woven from the dreams and thoughts of 1,000 different species with humanity. The once sleeping giants now acting as the unconventional dream, weaving conductors of this improbable, magnificent, and utterly unprecedented cosmic symphony, their ancient lullaby now transformed into a vibrant, defiant anthem against the dying of the light, forever changing what it meant to be alive and awake in a universe that had stared into the abyss and found, to its astonishment, that the abyss had blinked first, bewildered by a dream. It could not unmake a song, it could not silence, leaving only the profound echoing question of what new consciousness might stir within the unmaking itself, now that it had been touched by so many minds.